Welcome to IBTimes preview of this year's FA Cup final between Arsenal and Hull City. The Gunners are looking to end a trophy drought which stretches nearly 9 years, whilst Hull will be hoping to cap a successful first season in the top flight with their first major piece of silverware. I'm joined by sports reporters Nick Howson and Tony Mogan. And guys, what's at stake here for both clubs?
Well, I think for a Hull City team that have comfortably stayed up in the Premier League, who have even started building for next season as well, it's sort of a bit of a free pass to them in some ways. They can approach the game with some freedom. Yes, there's a lot at stake. You know, in the first FA Cup final, they won't want to let the opportunity pass. A lot of those players won't have been in that position before. But at the same time, with Steve Bruce, even though if he's chasing his first major silverware as well, you can see them approaching it with a bit of openness, and sort of it's a great day out for the fans as well. There's not too much pressure on the occasion, given the standard of the opposition as well. For Arsenal, it's almost the polar opposites. They need to win a major trophy. This could well spark some sort of dynasty at the Emirates. Who knows? And it could well impact on Arsene Wenger's future as well. So it couldn't be more different really for both teams.
Even given, let's say 6 months ago when Arsenal were considered in contention for a Premier League title, there was always this sort of subtext to what would happen if that faded away and what would happen if a trophy was their only single chance for silverware this season. And that's sort of grown over the past 3-4 months to the point now, a familiar point for the club, where if this doesn't happen, then there'll be questions asked as to where the club will go from here. As Nick said, a win and a dynasty is sparked again, another loss, another defeat at this level, and it's just going to be another period of frustration, and the questions that have been asked for the past 9 years almost will ring out again.
It's worth mentioning that the Arsenal players see it like that as well. I think Champions League is great, but that's something that they've got for the last 17 years. Really, success and failure really does. The thin line really is this weekend against Hull, and getting that major trophy, getting the monkey off their back, so to speak, even though it's only been 9 years, it is vital for the club, really.
Sure. I mean, that makes it sound as if, going into this game, the pressure is all on Arsenal. So will you expect a cautious approach from the side? Will nerves get to the team?
I think the way that Arsene Wenger will probably set up will be in a cautious manner. I don't expect it to be a free-flowing Arsenal performance, perhaps that we saw against Hull earlier in the season when they won at the KC Stadium and they looked at their fluid best. I don't think we're going to see that for several reasons. Firstly, because I think Wenger will put the brakes on somewhat, and also just nerves as well. We may well see Mikel Arteta and Matteo Flamini in midfield, and perhaps just Giroud was sort of flanked by maybe Cazorla and Thomas Rosicky, for example. But I don't think they'll approach the game in a forward manner. I think they're very much going to sort of see how it goes, maybe bring on the likes of Mesut Ozil, whose form's not been great of late. For Hull, it's going to be similar in the sense that they're going to try and flood the midfield, or certainly they may play five at the back, as Bruce has tried to do recently, and do the opposite. They started 2 up front against Arsenal recently when they were sort of overwhelmed really, and in midfield they couldn't get the foot on the ball. I would think they'll try and combat that by putting an extra man in there. The unfortunate thing being that they haven't really got an attacking outlet, and it looks like Yannick Sagbo is going to have to start up front.
I think that what will play to Bruce's strength is that he's shown himself to be a very versatile manager, not only in this FA Cup run, but generally speaking. He's reverted to playing the two of Shane Long and Jelavic in the Premier League, and then all of a sudden in FA Cup outings, he's relied on Sagbo, and with maybe Matty Fryer preying off him now and again. But he knows how to drift in between these two systems, at the front and at the back, where we've seen both utilise a straight back 4 and a 5 at the back. I think he judges this well on the quality of the opposition, and he knows when the right moment is to bring it in. And he showed in the semi-final as well that he can bring a changes in within the game itself. They were 2-1 down to Sheffield United at the halfway stage last month, and a couple of changes. We're obviously talking about very different class of opposition, but those changes told quite tellingly. And I think he's got that in his capabilities to spring that on any sort of opponent.
I think the unfortunate thing is that with Hull not having a great outlet in attack, the structure of the game may well very quickly become an attack against defence, and it's very much a case of Hull will need, it's going to be a typical set piece, or it's going to be a moment of magic in a cup final. Otherwise, you can expect Arsenal to monopolise possession and really just try and squeeze their opponents.
Sure. With all that in mind then, would you say that Arsenal are favourites? Do you reckon they're going to come out on top?
I'd say Arsenal are the overwhelming favourites, not only because of their league positioning and the league results they got as well, but also because Hull can offer very little other than their sort of defensive steel. That's only going to win you a cup final if it can go all the way to penalties, and that's surviving 120 minutes against an Arsenal side who'll be hungry for silverware, we know, and even if they don't start with all their big guns, really only going to be missing one or two, probably Theo Walcott, Thomas Vermaelen. The rest are expected to be fit. So you'd think from an Arsenal point of view there are no excuses this time.
From a lot will be made of now how form counts for nothing going to a final, but since getting to this stage in April, March, whenever it was now, Hull City haven't won a game since. I know the Premier League status was secured, but from going for a level where you've sort of been maybe taking your foot off the gas to this high-octane scenario, which will be unfolding on Saturday, it will be asking a lot for the Hull players who may have had their resting on their laurels in recent weeks to suddenly adapt again to an Arsenal side whose hunger for trophy, I think, will shine over Hull's hunger on the day, given their wait for this day and potential moment for the club.
It's also worth mentioning that in finals we've seen, very much a top 4 team play sort of a lower ranked side, like sort of Manchester City versus Stoke, Chelsea versus Portsmouth, even the Wigan game, last year as well. Very tight games. They all had a very similar flow to them, and you can expect very similar this weekend, I'm afraid.
So if you had to go for a result, what would you go for?
It's 1-0 to the Arsenal, I'm afraid.
Yeah, difficult to look past that. I'll give them the benefit of a 3-goal cushion, maybe. Under 3 late goals in the last 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, for all our coverage of the FA Cup final, go to our website, ibtimes.co.uk/sport.